Francisco Sanchez, Associate Administrator at the Small Business Administration, Houstonian. No matter where I'm at, who I'm working for, how much time I spend in D.C. working for the Biden-Harris administration, Houston is home, always home, and the title that matters most to me is Houstonian. And while I'm always grateful to be back, certainly not into situations like this where this community is facing a time of crisis, unfortunately, like we've done multiple times over the past many years. But what it is nice to come back home to is the kind of collaboration that is critically important to making sure that we recover quickly as possible, making sure that we're providing all the resources that we need across this community where they're needed the most. So I've been in touch with Mayor Whitmire, who continues to work to make sure that across this city and this community we're providing those incredible resources. The judge and her team in the county that are well practiced, our office there of emergency management, delivering for the residents of Harris County. And so we're going to be joined here by folks that represent that coordination and that collaboration across local, state, federal, business, and nonprofit partners. Commissioner Garcia here as well, Council Members Peck and Kamen, and I know we've got some folks in the room. Council Member Castillo couldn't be here, but we're in his district right now. Congresswoman Fletcher and some other folks in the room really representing the kind of teamwork that it takes to recover. On behalf of the Biden-Harris administration, I was here with the mayor last Thursday. We were actually in a meeting talking about how we would be better prepared at the state, local, and federal levels to surge in the resources we needed after a disaster. Then the storm rolled in. My commitment to Mayor Whitmire and this community was that the federal government would be swift in its response. The president signed the declaration within about 36 hours after that. The FEMA Administrator, Criswell, and I were on the ground earlier this week, making sure that the two agencies that are the first federal agencies on the ground, SBA and FEMA, were here at the top leadership to ensure that this community would have every resource that it needs. And so what we are talking about today is the opening of two business recovery centers. We are opening one here at the University of Houston downtown, who has graciously hosted us. It will be open Monday through Fridays 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 4. Trinity Mendenhall on the west side with similar hours. We will be making announcements in the near future about more permanent facilities or what those hours look like. We have parts of this community that are barely getting power back. They have access issues, but right now we're not letting that stop us from being on the ground. So these two are open today. You can come in, get some one-on-one help. And while these are business recovery centers, what many people do not know is 80% of disaster lending goes to homeowners and renters, and about 20% goes to businesses. That's for almost any disaster across the country. And so don't let that stop you from coming in. We're the Small Business Administration, but we're here to help every part of the community recover. The last thing people want to think about sometimes is a loan. You have just taken an impact. You've just taken some losses. The last thing you want to think about is taking on additional debt. But the reality is recovery can be expensive. So let me tell you what I mean by low interest, long-term loans. For individuals, that's homeowners and renters, you can get up to $500,000 to repair your structure for physical damage, up to $100,000 for personal contents, and so furniture, clothes, your vehicle. We saw many vehicles that were impacted by this disaster. If you are a business, you can get up to $2 million to help with physical damage or economic injury and revenue loss. And this is the important point. For homeowners and renters, individuals, that interest rate for this disaster is as low as 2.66% for over 30 years. For businesses, that's as low as 4% over 30 years. And so that is how we're surging in access to capital that people need to recover. And this is particularly important for individuals that may have been impacted. When I toured this community a couple of days ago, I saw people already lining up debris. I saw trees already being put on the curb. I saw contractors at work. If you are a homeowner or a business or an individual that has already put your credit card down to pay for that, to jumpstart your recovery, or you have already incurred expenses, you can still come to SBA for a loan at that 2.66% over 30 years to reduce the interest that you're paying, or to give you the capital that you need to be able to recover. If you are a business and you were not physically damaged. As I've spoken to chambers across this region and entrepreneurs, I've heard from many businesses that have not been physically impacted, but they are seeing a loss of revenue. Either the power was out, they couldn't access their business, their employees were impacted, so they couldn't open, customers aren't coming back yet, for any number of reasons. If your business has a lack of revenue, Small Business Administration can offer you an economic injury disaster loan that will help you cover those general operating costs to help you get back on your feet. And this is critically important. Many of the lessons that we have launched at the Small Business Administration over the past 2.5 years have been the results of lessons learned in communities like this in Houston. To deliver on the President's commitment to tackle disasters head on, to fight climate change, to be there for quicker recovery as communities are impacted more and more. As SBA Administrator Isabella Casillas Guzman signed a sweeping reform to make capital easier and more accessible for every community. So if you get an SBA loan, you don't have to make a payment for 12 months and 0% interest. So that gives you a year to be able to do what matters most, and that is you can focus on your own personal recovery, and SBA will be here a year later to continue to work with you to get that loan going. So I will say, because we are in a community that is disaster prone, another change that we've made at SBA is focusing on resilience. Until about a year ago, you could come to SBA and up to 20% of your verified damage, you could get additional funds through our mitigation feature to build back in a way that's more resilient, but you could only build back in a way that helped you be more resilient against that particular disaster. So before, you could have taken a loan out now, but only mitigated against wind or tornadoes. Now, because of the changes we've made at the Small Business Administration, because of the lessons we learned here in Houston and Harris County in Texas, you can now use that mitigation feature to mitigate against any type of disaster that you might face in this community. So if you were impacted, you should think about not just mitigating against a tornado or wind. You can now use those funds to mitigate against flooding, hurricanes, or even ice storms, right, as we tackle more issues here. So those are the kinds of resources that we're opening. These two centers are to get help on the ground today. Along with FEMA and across the federal family, we'll be announcing more centers to come, but we wanted to make sure that we were on the ground as quickly as we could. So the commitment that we made last week from SBA to the mayor and this community that we would be here as quickly as we could, we've delivered on that promise. The commitment I'm making to you today is SBA will be here where we're needed, when we're needed, and we will be here as long as it takes.